Hi, I'm Father Jerry Kramer, pastor at Church of the Annunciation in New Orleans. 1 week after Katrina struck here, I paddled a boat into the city. A lot of folks have been interested in that footage and adventure, and I'd like to tell you more about it. As we were coming in, we left about 4:30 in the morning from Hammond, and we just looked out over the bridge at the city, and all you could see was smoke, water, helicopters, and troops. And the reporter, the main reporter who was with us, she told me, I covered Sarajevo for that whole war. This is what it looked like. We came across the Causeway Bridge from the North Shore and snaked along the sliver by the river and got as close as we could when the water started reaching the southern end of Napoleon. There's St. Charles Avenue. And that's where we had to park the car and begin our adventure towards the church. Oh, I never made a decision about going in or not going in. I felt sort of drawn towards the church. What I had to do is figure out how to get there. I don't know how deep the water is ahead of me. I know there are manhole covers that are probably open, and if I slip into one, I'm gone. And so I had to make a decision. Did I walk on the neutral grounds, the grassy area, because it was a little bit higher, but it was very unstable because it was so muddy and there was all kinds of debris I was stepping on. But also, if I walked on the street, it was flatter, but it was lower, and I was in deeper water. And also, there would be the manhole cover issue. So I kept trying to figure out where exactly I should plant my feet going forward. The other obstacle I encountered, besides water, was the Coast Guard and the Navy helicopters. They had just begun doing the first major rescue sorties, and they were flying over constantly looking for people in the water. And so what would happen is they would circle around me, and I would stop and pretend like I belonged there, and I wasn't going any further. And then when they moved on, then I would start moving forward. And we played this cat and mouse game all up Napoleon. Well, I realized at that point, God's providence more than ever. So here comes a boat, which I apparently am going to need. I saw them coming from the deep water by the church, and I wanted to know how deep it was. Could I actually walk there? And they told me no, I couldn't. It would be up around my head or so. These were two Iranian gentlemen who owned the Shell station across the street from the church. I knew them. And so the next logical thing to do was to ask them for the boat, which they gladly gave to me. You know, it was like just sort of stepping out into the abyss. You know, I didn't know what was ahead. I didn't know what I would find. I didn't know how far I would make it. I didn't know if I would make it back. You know, half the challenge is getting there. The other half is to actually find your way back. And I really didn't know what I was getting into. It was very hot that morning. I was pushing 100 degrees, and the smell was just horrific. And I broke out in a rash from head to toe. I fell in the water at one point. I had a rash before I even got back from the trip, and a stomach ache and a headache. They had to burn all of my clothes that I was wearing. Even the one pair of shoes I evacuated with, they had to take and burn. I think at one point I just stopped and floated. And I was in the heat and the smell and the rash, and to see, it was cognitive dissonance. You know, my eyes are seeing something that my brain can't comprehend. Busy streets that I would see people on every day, busy streets I drove my truck on and walked across, and to see it just underwater in that fuel water. It was 20% fuel. And I honestly stopped for a moment and said, it would have been better to have drowned. The people who drowned were the lucky ones, because I saw just absolutely no hope at that point. It was so surreal and just such an alone feeling. First thing I noticed was the broken window, so that meant I knew we had looters inside. And but I was able to get in through the door, and I wanted to get into the church. What I was trying to do was assess the damage, figure out what was there, and also to rescue our vestments and brass and silver items, many of which are sentimental to the people here. I wanted to get those in my garbage bags and get them out back to dry land. The nurses across the street at Baptist Memorial Hospital, that's where 45 people died. The nurses told me later that the looters were using the church as a looting headquarters. They would go out during the day, loot, shoot, and then they'd come tie their boats up at night and sleep there. When I did pop upstairs quickly, found 7 switchblades up in the youth room, and a lot of things that had been stolen, obviously, from other places. There's beer cans and food. And when I came into the youth room and found the switchblades, the Jambox radio they had going was still running by battery. And we all know those things don't last very long on battery. So I did not miss them by very much. When I went into the sacristy where we keep our vestments and brass and silver, it was absolutely pitch black. It was dank and musty, just a sour smell in there. I knew I didn't have much time. I wasn't sure if there were looters in the building, looters coming into the building. It was a very tense time. And so I moved very quickly to get as much as I could into black trash bags, bundled up, and we just moved fast I wanted to get out of that building as quickly as possible. I was eager to get into the church just to see it and to maybe grapple with what we were dealing with. And as I walked in, I was trying to find a way in, and I finally came into our pretty old church, and just to see it in utter destruction and in the pit of despair. And there's just no way to describe that feeling of just disbelief of what I was witnessing. Just back to another surreal feeling of, wow, how are we going to undo this? Just looking out at it. And how is this going to be made new? How could that possibly happen? Just to stand there looking out from the altar, the pews completely underwater, and just looking out where I had seen so many faces of people I know and love. And that's comparing, contrasting with what was in front of my eyes, which was just total devastation and destruction. They'd actually were beginning to explode, pop from the content of that water. And all of our Bibles, hymnals, I knew were completely gone. Anything the water touched, it just destroyed. And it was just looking at your church in the middle of a lake. One of the great challenges we're facing here is that 60% of all churches, all denominations across 3 civil parishes, Orleans, St. Bernard, and Plaquemine parishes, are gone. And of the 40% of us left, half will be gone in 2 years or less. As of today, we have $70 in our operating account. And there's this tremendous void right now in our community where the church is needed more than ever. And what's really sustained us all along from day one have been the faithful prayers of people around the world. People coming in, mission teams, just individuals getting in their cars and coming and living with us and working with us, getting their hands dirty for a day or two or a week or two. And we've had a few who've even come and haven't left yet. And that's been such a blessing to us. And we do need financial support. That's the reality of it. We are actually growing as a congregation in numbers, but our people are poor. Many of them have lost their businesses, their work, their homes, their places to stay, and it's an incredible pressure, and it's this paradox of having great ministry and great need and wonderful people all around us, but money does fuel mission and ministry, and that helps us going too. We'd love to hear from you. My personal phone number is 225-819-7553. My email is kramermission, KRAMERMISSION, @yahoo.com. And you can visit our website at www.annunciationinexile.homestead.com.